Hello, everyone, and welcome to a live edition of the Full 40 featuring Chris Notaro from Villanova Tip Time. I'm Chris Bellotti. This is Rob Dormish. We are the hosts of the Full 40 podcast. We've been doing this for 5 seasons now, and we just crossed 4 years of actually doing it. So 5th season, good to start in a national championship winning season. Definitely helped us kind of get started. But here we are joining forces with the voice of Villanova's pregame, Chris Notaro.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much. So happy to be here. So happy to have the opportunity to talk Villanova basketball with all you guys and these guys. I mean, hats off to the Full 40. They have absolutely cemented themselves as a huge part of Villanova Twitter. Chris is an absolute machine on Twitter Spaces, but that's all behind the fact that, podcast, 5 years old now, and you've had some amazing guests, sort of become the voice of the Nova Nation and the heart of the fan base. So I'm super pumped to be here with you guys.
And we have some.
Chris is the #1 Twitter Spaces user.
Yeah,
Twitter is
absolutely.
Pretty confirmed.
Absolutely. Yes. But we have some thank yous to go through. So first off, we want to thank Villanova Club of NYC for helping to get this thing going and promote this event. Want to thank Villanova alumni and all the people who work there because they were able to get us this room. We had a bit of a snafu yesterday. I think we got to talk about that for a second.
I think we do have to start there. Yeah,
we were at Crompton Ale House.
That's why we all have a glass of whiskey right now.
Yeah, that's correct. But we always have a glass of whiskey on the Full 40. Yeah. But we have to talk about that because we were at Crompton Ale House, all set up. We sound checked the day before, and it was like crystal clear, perfect. We were like, we got this. Like, it was a little bit of duct tape and bubble gum, if we're being honest with you. But
we felt good about it.
We felt good about it. And then we sat down at the bar. I started talking. Apparently, they could hear me in the back or in the front of the bar because we were all the way in the back. And Rob and Chris, who were sitting right next to me, couldn't hear a word I was saying.
No idea.
I kept looking back and forth at them like, hey, guys, want to say hello? And they were like, are we talking? Are we live? So we couldn't hear a goddamn thing yesterday. So with that said, let's stop talking about ourselves and let's talk about what the hell happened last night.
Absolutely wild game. I got to say, this team has not obviously made a comeback of that magnitude this year. I was sitting there. I was not at the game, unfortunately. I know you were. Obviously, very different experience. I will admit, I said to Nicole at the bar, I don't think we're going to come back from this one. I thought down 17. It's just a big number. Right?
Huge. It's a big number.
It's a big number.
Especially the way we were playing. It felt like more.
Right. And anybody who listens to our podcast will know that I am not a big believer in St. John's. Bellotti is the biggest St. John's apologist out there. I am not. I'm never scared of St. John's. That said, I said 17 points. Look, even St. John's is not going to screw that one up. And somehow they did. I actually chalked this one up not to Villanova, but to Mike Anderson and some poor coaching that I want to point to. Posh Alexander sitting on the sidelines. I know we had 3 fouls, but Villanova goes on a 10-2 run. And he's just sitting there.
Well, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
We got to talk about the 3 fouls or the 4 fouls that he
Well, it's funny. We don't even need to talk about the first half.
Yeah.
The first half was like, forget it. The game started 4 minutes into the second half as far as we're all concerned.
Actually, when we started the game, I do want to get into one point. When we started
for sure.
When we started the game, I was like, what is the game plan here? Because it felt like we were just like taking threes off the bounce, which is just not what we like. We don't do that. Like,
it didn't look fluid.
No, nothing looked fluid. We looked all out of sorts. Jermaine Samuels has back spasms, ends up coming in and has a very impressive showing after dealing with the back spasms. So credit to Jermaine there. But we had no offensive flow. Nothing was going right. It just seemed so like whatever. So to the point of the 17-point deficit, I was sitting there like, unless the game plan changes, I don't know how it's going to work. And then all of a sudden, St. John's, I think what they did was try and go for the kill shot. What I saw them, they started to overhelp on things.
Over pursue for sure.
Over pursue, try and really lock people down and create traps. We actually handled that press pretty well as the game wore on. And then Caleb Daniels got open and shot after shot after shot. Reminded me a little bit, if I'm being honest with you, going 16 years in the past.
Oh God, I know where you're going.
To Alan Ray shooting us back in the game versus UConn. We'll get to them a little bit later. But shot us right back into the game. And then we got the game down to 6. And once you got the game under like a 2-possession game, it felt like, okay, now we're flowing. I do have to talk about one thing because St. John's Twitter, which is a thing that exists, was
all 6 of them.
Oh yeah, but they tweet a lot.
Yeah,
they were aflame about the foul calls. And you mentioned Posh Alexander had 4 fouls. To my eye, he had 9 or 10 fouls.
Yeah.
Because
isn't that just their defense?
Yeah, that is their defense. That is what they do. They foul on every possession, and so it's like a bed of nails theory. It's like they're reaching constantly so much that the refs like, I can't call it foul on every single possession of this game. And they get away with so much garbage as a result of it. And then down the stretch, there was 3 offensive foul calls that were called on Gillespie and Slater and whatever. There might have been, one of them might have been legit.
But maybe not even.
No, it was outrageous. Kind of helped St. John's, if anything, stay in that game late. They shouldn't have even gotten to a point where it was contestable.
Yeah.
So I think once Caleb got going, once Justin
recording
and Colin,
in progress
got going, it was all said and done.
Yeah, I think ultimately it just proves that every fan base is going to complain about the refs no matter what, because I was just stunned going on Twitter after the game and kind of catching up that there was big hullabaloo about St. John's feeling like the refs handed Nova the game, because I just didn't feel like that was the factor in the game. There were, I think, bad calls that went both ways, but especially because of the 3 charge calls in a row. If anybody had a claim that of sourness, there would have been us.
Yeah.
But alas, none of us cared because we won the game.
That's
And we
exactly
came back,
right.
You know what I mean? So
Honestly, if you score 65 points and you're complaining about it, you can get it done offensively. So
yeah,
it's a little bit on you.
the thing you
and
said,
you give up a 17-point lead. Let's just be clear.
Yeah,
the thing you said that I want to come back to is Caleb Daniels. So he had 19 points in the spot start role. So huge contribution, including 5 of 9 from 3. One thing I noticed that was really interesting was right after the game ended and they went to pull a player for like the immediate post-game media stuff on the court, they pulled Justin Moore. And as soon as they pulled Justin Moore, it was like, hey, Justin definitely contributed down the stretch here. But it felt like that was a missed opportunity for Caleb. It should have been Caleb, because if you look at Justin Moore's stat line, he had 15 points on 2 of 9 shooting from 3. So he missed a lot of threes last night. And Caleb was 19 points on 5 of 9 shooting from 3. So I think Caleb Daniels needs all the love for keeping us in that game when the whole team was playing like crap and hitting a bunch of big shots during the run.
So you want to do awards?
Let's do some awards.
We do awards.
Absolutely.
So for those who don't listen, we do 3 awards about every single week. The 3 awards are the ARF Alpha Dog of the Week.
Yes.
I actually don't know how that originated because we're the Wildcats, but we picked ARF Alpha Dog.
We
It's
did,
fine.
yes.
It's fine. No big deal. Nothing has to make sense here in the full 40. We do a Shack Fit Man Play of the Week, which is named after, of course, Coach John Shackleton, the Villanova strength and conditioning or Villanova performance coach. And he's obviously incredible.
Yep.
And so we named an award after him. He's been a guest on our podcast a couple times. A couple years ago, Rob and I did a workout with him, which went really well for Rob and really poorly for me.
Kudos to Rob.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. The marathon runner over here was able to handle the high endurance workout there. But anyway, we have the third award, which
the newest,
which we're going to say is the Pass the Ball Award of the Week. The pass the 4-letter word with an ing added.
If we're live streaming this at the bar, we're not sure if it actually got hooked up into Crompton. Who knows? But we dropped a few F-bombs yesterday while we were trying to get things set up. So we will not drop that and spare everyone's ears a little bit. So anyway, the Pass the Ball Award, which was inspired by one play, was it a year or so ago?
It was 2 years ago by Justin Moore.
Justin Moore, yes. So after one particular possession, called a timeout, Justin approached the bench, and Jay made very clear his displeasure that Justin clearly should have passed the ball award.
Yes.
So there we are.
Those are our 3 awards. So let's get into those. So first off, the alpha dog of the game, one game, is Caleb Daniels, right? We talked about it. 19 points, 5 of 9 shooting from deep, just lights out down the street. He was terrific. He was terrific yesterday. He put the team on his back as a 6th man. He got the start, I believe, because of Samuels. But That was awesome.
And he continues to improve.
He's been
Continues
incredible.
to improve game by game, which right time for that.
Oh yeah.
It is his second Alpha Dog award in a row
Yep.
after, I
Ooh.
believe, not having one all season. So, Chris, to your point, he is exactly trending in the right direction and doing exactly what we had called for about a month or so ago. We wanted to see consistent double-digit high-end performance. Boom.
As we pointed out on the last podcast, Caleb Daniels is from Louisiana. In fact, he is from the same high school that Kerry Kittles went to.
Mm-hmm.
Guess where the Final Four is this year? New Orleans, Louisiana. So I think Caleb Daniels is planning to play some games at home in April.
I also, in reading the box score, 19 points, but he also grabbed 7 boards. So, he's not necessarily a little dude, but he's definitely not the tallest guy out there.
No.
So 7 boards is a noticeable contribution as well.
Really active, just a terrific
0
performance.
turnovers as well.
That's incredible. And he did have to handle the ball sometimes because we were switching Colin and Justin out due to some foul issues and whatever. So he was incredible. The Shaq Fit man play of the game. Slater went for one, but missed the dunk attempt pretty wildly. But I'm actually going to go with Slater still for the 2 free throws.
Ugh, I really don't like these.
I know you don't like shooting things, but he gets up on the biggest stage, 3 seconds left, down 1, and drills both free throws. And the key point that I want to point out is the fact that he even got to the line to begin with had to do with the fact that he got the ball.
Second offensive rebound in a row.
Second offensive rebound in a row. So the whole entire play, I think, is the Shaq Fit man play. The rebound, that man board, like we needed that board, and he was like, I'm getting that board.
That's actually that I can get on board with. The fact that he got that, and then yes, obviously the conversion. If he hadn't converted, we're not having this conversation. Let's call it what it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
No.
That's right.
Oh no, we're licking our wounds at home tonight. Probably not watching, but then realistically we'd be watching.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself. I would not be.
No, I wouldn't be. I don't know if I think I'd watch.
What's funny is if you go to like ESPN Gamecast, you see the win probability. If you go and look at that for last night, it is an absolutely beautiful sight. It's like St. John's way up here, and then Villanova way down here, and then St. John's way up here again until 4 seconds left in the game when they have that sequence with the multiple offensive rebounds, and boom, back down to Villanova, and it was just a beautiful sight to behold.
It was terrific.
Great.
All right, so let's talk about the Garden for a little bit last night.
Wait. What about our third award?
Oh, the Pass the Ball award of the week.
I think if I'm going to pick, I think I'm probably going with, I'm debating in my head. I'm probably going with Langino. But I don't want to totally blame him for it. I kind of want to blame Jay a little bit for it as well.
Yeah.
Because Langino gets subbed in. The play I'm thinking about, Langino gets subbed in very late in the game and picks up a foul instantly.
Well, he's so good at that.
Instantly.
There was an offensive foul, right?
I think
there was a BS offensive foul.
Yeah, regardless, whatever it was, it happened. It was late in the game. And I said on Slack, I was like, why is he in the game? Why is he coming in now? And this is, we made this point on so many podcasts. We want to expand the rotation, yada, yada, yada. We finally accepted, okay, the rotation is what it is.
I think our rotation is what it is, boys.
And then...
But then Antoine plays yesterday.
Yeah, but
5 minutes.
Antoine plays.
5 minutes. He and Chris Arch had both in 5 minutes.
Yeah, but let's be clear. They played.
Yeah.
You don't make that decision coming back 17 points to put Jordan Langino in a game late when he hasn't played in 3 games. Insanity. So a little bit to Jordan, a little bit to Jay on that one.
Jordan played 3 minutes and had 3 fouls.
Fair enough.
He's efficient.
Very foul efficiency.
He's getting his money's worth.
He got his money's worth. That is absolutely. So do you want to talk about the Garden? Because the Garden was, my God, did it deliver last night?
It really did.
It was an electric environment. When we sat down, people were like, oh, is it going to fill up or whatever? No, when you got the 2 games in a row, you got to think about how the session plays out. So the first half is going to be a little bit more dead, even though it wasn't dead. It just wasn't.
It was filled out by halfway into the first half.
Yeah, exactly right. And then once you got into the second half, that building was alive. It was incredible to have the fans back in the stands in Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament. And it was 4 local schools. So you had Villanova St. John's, you had the Seton Hall and UConn fans all in attendance. Yeah. You could tell that the Seton Hall and UConn fans were feeling like, oh, we might get St. John's in our next game. So they started to pile on. the St. John's fans. So it was kind of like Villanova verse, all good. We had it under control. Obviously, the guys got it done. But it was just an incredible atmosphere in the Garden last night. Rob, you missed out. And now,
I did miss
and now
out.
to go tonight, you might have to pay like $1 million.
It is absolutely absurd. I've been monitoring ticket prices. I told Nicole what my number was. We are nowhere near my number at this point. This is always the dilemma I have, though, with the Big East tournament, right? Is that, look, you go Thursday, you're expected to win, right? Best case, you come back Friday. So I'm sinking the money. Worst case, I lose and I'm upset and I spent the money on that. Friday to me is like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm willing to pay for Friday because we're in the semis. This is a game you want to pay for. Good excitement generally. Unfortunately now, with UConn back, and like, let's give them some credit. Like, that addition to the Big East has worked out very well. That fan base absolutely travels. They're pumped to be back in the Garden. And they have a good team this year. And guess what? Those prices are through the roof. I think, I'm looking for 2 tickets. It's like the cheapest I just checked was like $185 pre-fees. So I'm paying at least $250 a ticket after fees.
At least they're coming down a little bit. I haven't looked in a couple hours. It was like $250. So
yeah, you're right.
Coming back down to earth a little bit.
Granted, they are terrible seats.
Terrible.
Let's be clear.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. You're talking about getting in the door.
Getting in the door. Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to monitor this very closely. It's 5:16 as we speak Eastern. I am going to be checking out like all the way up until when Providence and Creighton tip off, because I'm hopeful that as that game starts, that people start to panic.
Panic sell.
Yeah, panic sell. So that's what I'm hoping for.
We should do a whole podcast on the dynamics of last minute ticket sales.
Yeah. Alternatively, you could go to the ACC tournament.
Ooh.
And I don't know,
they pay you, I think, is what they're trying
the
to do.
The Uber
here
would cost more than the tickets
100%
for a family of 8.
Yeah, 100% the Uber would take more. 100%. It's been very fun to see Syracuse fans kind of meander with their head kind of like buried down, like walking around Penn Station, like, oh, we can't go here. Like, this is not our house anymore. You see, I made a prediction that we would see more Syracuse fans at MSG. And I actually saw quite a few Syracuse sweatshirts in the stands at MSG last night, which is just terrific. You just have to love the irony of all of it.
I remember our first year of the podcast, we did a segment, I think it might have been our second episode. It's called How'd That Work Out for You? And it was about Pitt basketball and their experience transferring to the ACC. And at that time, Pitt was like the example of how poorly that ACC transfer had worked out for them. Unfortunately for Syracuse, they have very much followed suit. Yes, they've made a Final Four. They keep making the tournament. We've discussed this previously.
Not this year.
Not this year. That's for sure.
They will not.
That program is trending down. So good riddance, Syracuse.
Yep. That's exactly right. I couldn't be happier.
Oh,
so what do we got going on tonight? So here's how we got to tonight. We got Providence wins a thriller yesterday versus Butler. And although Providence always plays in a thriller game, which is why they've gotten the lucky dub, if you will.
St. Patrick's Day is coming up.
And
Luck
St.
of the
Patrick's
Irish.
Day. That's exactly
Luck of the
right.
Irish.
That's exactly the Friarish.
Luck of the Irish. Right?
Yes. But
terrible.
Providence wins a thriller versus Butler. And given that we also won a thriller versus St. John's, I don't think we can hate that much. But I also want to give a little bit of credit. That noon game on Thursday is just so difficult to win. Yeah. It is just, it's dead in there. It doesn't feel right. It feels all off. Providence hadn't played since they played us 9-10 days ago. So they were coming off a long time off. They had Al Durham still dealing with the hernia and he hadn't played for 2 weeks. And they had come off the highs of the winning the Big East regular season championship and the lows of losing to us.
Yeah.
And 9 days off to then play at noon versus Butler, who had the opportunity to play the day before. Just a really awkward spot to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I actually give Providence a little bit of credit. I don't like to do that, but I'm going to give Providence a little bit of credit for just gutting out the victory last year.
We've been there. We've had to do it too.
Yeah. So we had to do it last night, but we've had to do it. We've had to do it at that
one new game where it just feels like it's about the time.
Yeah, it really does. It just feels really uncomfortable for whatever reason. These guys play at noon on Saturdays all the time, but it just feels different on a Thursday, especially coming off an opponent who was fresh from playing yesterday.
And it feels horrible for the fan of the 1 seed that had to like take a half day from work to be there for it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's just nothing fun about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, credit to them. They got it done. Then Creighton actually won pretty comfortably versus Marquette yesterday. Marquette
What
made
happened
a
to
charge
Marquette
late.
down the stretch?
I don't know. They're not the team that beat us twice. I can tell you
They
that.
can't be.
Yeah, right.
How did they beat us twice?
Well, the
We
one
coughed
game
up
at the,
one of
the
them.
one game at the Pavilion is probably my least favorite game of the entire year. That was the most pissed off. And that includes the UCLA give it away, the Purdue give it away, the Marquette give it away at home. That I was fuming that game.
Wow, I didn't realize they've lost 6 of their last 10.
Yeah,
That's
no.
not good.
Them and Xavier both like just
Xavier's
stop playing basketball.
Xavier's
the only reason why
We're not talking about
Marquette as much, right? If we were just talking about if Xavier like held serve down the stretch, we'd be talking about Marquette and them falling way back.
Right. Everybody was all over Shaka Smart about resurging the program, and they'll make the tournament, but
Which to be fair, if you ask them in the beginning of the season, hey, you're going to make the tournament as like maybe a 7, 8, 9, 10 seed, like, are you happy? They'd be like, yeah, this was supposed to be a rebuilding
Right.
year.
but a total limp in because there was a time in the season where you could have seen them as like a 4 seed,
Yeah.
or maybe even a 3 seed.
The weird thing about them is how they play might make them better once they start facing non-conference opponents again.
Sure.
They
Yep,
play
I
a
see
unique brand of defense, a unique brand of basketball that the Big East figured out over the course of the season. I think that was kind of the issue there. So Marquette's Big East season is done. They'll make the tournament. And I actually think they can win a game. Maybe 2, I don't know, but they can win. Two's a lot to ask for, but I think they can win a game in March.
You know what? They could win 2.
Yeah.
Like they beat us. Like they have enough talent on the team
For sure.
to win 2. Do I expect them to win 2? No. Win 1? Yeah. We can do that.
But by the way, I think the laugher of all of this is that Creighton was like talked about as a bubble team as recently as a week ago.
And they had to reinvent themselves. They lost their point guard.
And they
lost
lost
the freshman of the year.
Exactly right. They lost the freshman of the year who was incredible. They still, luckily for them, have about 47 more Ryans on that team
Yeah.
to back them up. But they figured themselves out. They reinvented themselves while on the bubble, beat UConn down the stretch and get a big win over Marquette. There's no question about it. Creighton is making the NCAA tournament. Nothing matters about what they do tonight. I think Providence is going to end up winning this game since we're kind of entering into like a little bit of a prediction. I think Providence is going to end up getting them. I think this tournament is setting up for a Providence and then one of us two final. We'll get into that prediction in just a little bit, but I think it's setting up for that.
Who is the Providence fan base going to root for in the second game tonight? Because I'm very torn on this. I would have thought last night that Providence might have actually rooted for Villanova in a Villanova versus UConn game, but Providence Twitter, just checking in on them today, seems pretty split on the matter.
I think that the fans in the building are going to root for a meteor to hit the building. Like after they get done with their games. I mean, the Providence fans hate Villanova. No, but here's the thing. Providence fans hate Villanova because we've been good and we've had their number.
Yeah.
Right. Providence fans hate UConn on a much more visceral level. Right. Like when Villanova visited UConn, I saw that Providence Twitter was aflame that they were sad that they had to root for UConn in that game.
It's Duke UNC-esque.
It's that level.
That's a big statement.
No.
Yankees, Red Sox.
No. Yeah, that's fine.
So it's something like that.
Rob. We're not saying it's Duke UNC-esque in the sense of like the level
eliteness.
of eliteness. Although UConn is there, UConn's right there. But
the disdain.
The disdain is there. Like maybe the most apt one is actually Villanova St. Joe's might be the more apt thing. And in this situation, Providence is St. Joe's. So
now the question is though, if you're a Providence fan, I understand the hatred and there's something fun about playing your rival, right? I'm sure a lot of the fans are already aware of the talk track that we've gone through of, oh, does the Providence title have an asterisk around it because of the couple games they skipped, because of the fact that we beat them twice already? Maybe they're saying no, but there is a chance that if you're a Providence fan, you say, hey, Villanova, Providence, this is the title game. Let's
Right.
put it on
It
the
is the title
line.
game.
Let's get a chance to assert our dominance. Say,
Yeah.
yep, won the regular season. Call it whatever you want. We beat you in the tournament, and that's what it matters.
That's what I was actually just going to get to. I think Providence is rooting for Villanova tonight
They want
because
it.
UConn has been the ones most strongly behind the asterisk narrative. They've been giving the Providence fans because they canceled the games, and Providence didn't cancel the games. The Big East couldn't reschedule them, but it just so happened that they rescheduled the Georgetown game. That managed to get rescheduled, but the other three did not.
Right.
Including the revenge game for UConn at the Dunk to play Providence. So that game did not get rescheduled. So UConn fans have been beating this drum all season long. And I think Providence fans are rooting for Villanova for that exact reason. We want Villanova. That's our prove it game. We beat you guys in the Big East tournament championship game. We get to claim the title. No one can question it. No one can say anything twice. No one can say boo. That's it. That's ours.
And congrats to Providence on the regular season title, even if it was kind of on a weird technicality. But they're finding out now for the first time with that first title that the regular season title doesn't matter. It like it's great. You get a banner for it, and we have the banners hung just like everybody else does that's won it before. But it doesn't matter. There's nothing attached to it. What matters is right now what's going on in Madison Square Garden. And oh my God, what a night it's going to be in the Garden. On this game, Providence is favored by 3 points. Your over-under is 131. So I think we're getting into prediction time. Where are you guys on this for Providence Creighton?
Providence by, I don't know. I mean, I hate saying anything less than Providence by 5 because, or more than Providence by 5 because they win all their games by 5. Doesn't matter who they play.
I think Providence gets done. Providence is a better team. Call it what it is. Call it luck, whatever. Luck factors in. They get the wins.
Especially without what's his name for Creighton. I just think it's too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
I think it's too much. The last time these teams played, Providence made really quick work of them. Now the emotion in that building was outrageous, kind of going into it, but like that game was absolutely outrageous. So
I agree. I like Providence. I like Providence to cover the spread. Over under 131. I think being that there's a decent chance we might be in the building, you got to root for the over there. I think they're going to score more than 65 each, just being on the big stage. But
I think so. Plus, well, Creighton played a little bit better yesterday, but Providence had a really off night. Like Corker couldn't shoot the ball, whatever. They've had a day to be in the building. I think they'll shoot better tonight. I think you're right. Look, I'm not a bettor. I can't do it because I'm too emotional with the bets, but I think you're right that it'll hit the over.
I also think that Providence winning so many close games benefits them in a situation like tonight because they're not looking past it to tomorrow night. I think a lot of teams in Providence's shoes would look past it being the easier game of what's ahead of them. But because Providence has had to grind out so many close wins, I think they're just focused on what they have to get done tonight, however it needs to get done.
Yeah. So
excited. Look, can we take a step back? I'm actually just excited. We're talking about a really cool Big East tournament this year.
it's amazing.
Like the energy's awesome. The fact that we're complaining about ticket prices, obviously it's a problem we didn't have last year, even the year prior.
Yeah, when was the last time they were this much?
No, it was never this much.
A decade? Never?
No, I don't think ever.
Probably not since the new Big East.
It's definitely not since the new Big East because I've gone every year.
Yeah,
but
yeah, never have I been like looked at prices for Thursday and Friday and be like, ooh, this seems really steep.
Yeah, it was steep. Last night's ticket prices are normally what semifinal Friday's ticket prices are. So the prices are crazy. And like, I guess kind of like just asking about vibe, Chris, you've been living in Madison, Wisconsin for a couple of years. Actually, I think we went to a game. Did we go to a game together when we were in school?
We went to a game together in the Big East tournament.
Yeah, the Big East tournament when we were in school.
It was one of the Georgetown games, the one that we lost but you and I were coming in from Long Island, which is where Chris and I are both from originally. We were home on a break, both staying at our folks' place. And we took we met on the Long Island Railroad. We took the train in, we got into our seats like by the under 16 timeout, and Nova was down like 20-3.
Right. Yes.
We were like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, that wasn't great. That was back in the days when Georgetown was a good program. Yeah.
When was that?
Yeah.
Was that our grandparents?
It was about a decade ago. Yeah, it was more than a decade ago.
There's some great hairs on Georgetown being good.
Sorry, let's also just take a moment. Georgetown, 21 losses in a row.
Well done. Good season, guys.
It's
Very
honestly
impressive.
a bad look though.
Record-setting
It's
season.
like
for
as
Georgetown.
much as I want to dance on their grave, like I feel like
Let's
it's-
dance on the grave.
Oh,
yeah, I know, we
Come
can.
Come on.
Yeah, well, let's dance, baby.
Yeah.
But like it's like
Quick note: 21 losses in a row, and they're definitely bringing back Patrick Ewing next year.
Yeah.
To be very clear,
Yeah.
he is absolutely coming back without a doubt.
It's a bold move,
It's
Cotton.
a bold move. My God.
So Chris, I lost my track of where I was going with this. How you've been in the city now, first time coming in town, you're with the family, you're back in town for the first time in a long time for the Big East tournament.
yeah.
What are your vibes like? How are you talk to us about that a little
Oh man, you're teeing me up. So this is a big week for me. I'm from the area. I'm from the New York area, and before the pandemic, I had never gone longer than 3 months without being here in my entire life. Visits home to my mom, who still lives on Long Island. Most of my family all lives on Long Island, and I hadn't been home till this week in almost 2.5 years. In that time, I've had a son. He's 9 months old. His middle name is Wright. After the man himself. And I'm actually lucky enough that my wife and my son flew out last night. So they are here visiting my family for the first time, which is just a really special weekend in general. And then I think last night being in the Garden, of course, we were a little, I think bummed out about how our technical difficulties went in the pregame. But like once I got into the Garden and I was with a couple of my best friends, we were watching the game. I think the first half was a little bit of a gut punch, but like we started coming back and we were feeling that energy, and it was just such a special feeling. It was such a special place. I think not only because of anecdotally what I was going through as an individual, but just the essence in the room.
Right.
It's just magic.
It was incredible in there. But even like this is my favorite thing. Walking around Midtown today. So like I went to work in
I'm sorry. Favorite thing, walking around Midtown. You
It's
can't
the-
put those. You can't
Oh,
put
no.
those together.
this week.
No.
You can say that.
No,
this
you-
is the
you
only
cannot.
week you can say
I'm
that.
sorry. You must have moved out of the city too long ago. You've forgotten what it's like to walk around Midtown. You cannot.
I
say that. That's
literally walked
disgusting.
around
That is
Midtown. I
disgusting.
literally walked around Midtown
Oh my
last night
gosh.
and today. But it was incredible to do that because you see UConn sweatshirts, you see Providence hoodies, you see Seton Hall t-shirts, you see Nova gear, like mostly sweater vests.
It felt like you were inside of a Big East commercial almost.
Yes, 100%.
Of people passing each other by on the street and like ducking if it's an away fan. And if you saw a Nova person and you had discernible Nova gear on, it'd be like automatic V's or like a
I love that.
I definitely got the V. That's maybe inappropriate, but I got V'd today, even all the way on the east side where I was working today. So it's incredible to kind of be around the energy, as John Rothstein says, palpable buzz in the city.
very
Palpable buzz. And the atmosphere on the Garden yesterday was electric. After the game, so pregame at Crompton was incredible.
Oh.
First off, you had Brian Westbrook was in the house yesterday. We were
Really
in a
cool.
picture with him.
We did.
That was awesome. Mark Ferrante, who is the Villanova football head coach, coming off an incredible playoff season.
Really nice run.
Playoff season, was in the house. You had all these alums. Jerry Quinn, I got to shout him out from the DC alumni chapter. You had so many people. Like I feel like Villanova dignitaries were in the house yesterday.
In the house early too, because we showed up for sound check. Show was supposed to go on at 5, so we said, "Oh, let's show up 3:30." I got there around 4. I got there a little bit before 4. The bar was packed when I walked in the door, and I was just like, "Oh, like what is happening?" Again, we talked about this before. I said, Friday I can see people getting out of work early, and I'll take the L on this one. I pushed you. You're like, "No, people are going to get there early on Thursday." I was like, "Dude, it's Thursday. People are working." People must have been there at 3 o'clock.
Oh my God, yeah, because they were. By the way, we walked in at 4, and people were already like feeling good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So-
Crompton was not ready for it. but
No,
yes.
Crompton was not ready for it. The line to get a drink at the bar was insane.
Yeah.
But credit when credit's due, the Alumni Association put together an awesome event.
Yeah.
And Villanova Club of NYC has been they always do a great job, but yesterday was incredible. They had 2 pregame bars going. And that's not to mention all the other Villanova fans that were probably speckled out throughout the city. So we then went into MSG. After MSG, we stayed for about half of the Seton Hall UConn game. That became clear that was going UConn's way pretty early on.
It was a mass exodus at halftime. It felt like a regular event getting out at halftime.
Yeah, correct.
Even though I would say UConn did probably hold the largest majority of the crowd with their obnoxious UConn chant. It was an exodus at halftime.
Yeah, they definitely have that. We can spell UConn chant. UCON, UConn.
Marvelous of them.
Amazing.
Come on, you can. Yeah, it reminds me of the "Let's Go Mountaineers." Yeah, I hate that chant. God. Anyway, I expect to hear that tonight. Anyway, then me and a buddy went over to Stout after the game, and Stout was in all of its glory. One of my best things about Stout is like the official Big East bar. Stout's like the best thing because you talk to any alum from any school, you're like, what's your school's bar? And every alum thinks it's Stout. Every fan base thinks, oh, Stout's our bar. Stout's the bar that all the Villanova people go to. Oh yeah, it's also the bar that all the UConn people go to. And the St. John.
What? Maybe because it's right by fucking Penn Station and Grand Central. Like they're basically the same bar.
Yeah.
Put it by the train station. Good to go. Okay.
Exactly. Right next to MSG. Yeah. That's where everyone goes. But I love what they do. They have these like banners, printed out banners with the school logos, and they basically do like a ceremony for after every day's worth of games where they cut down the people who aren't there. So we were there. It was after midnight, and you saw Butler's, you saw Marquette, you saw St. John's, and you saw Seton Hall's banners get cut down to leave the final four of the Big East remaining. The top four, all chalk, by the way.
That's what you like to see.
Yeah, I agree with that. You like to see upsets early and then chalk late.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Same goes for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you want to see a good game.
All right. I think we got to talk about the game last night between Seton Hall and UConn, which there's not a whole lot to say about it other than Seton Hall's been dealing with some injuries. You could tell that Willard was not really interested in getting too far down the road in that game after playing Georgetown tight. They got their 2 games in. They're clearly easily in the tournament. They might be a 7 seed, probably going to end up on the 8-9 line. But you can tell
1 foot out the door.
I don't know about that. I'm not convinced.
Wow.
I'm not convinced. Yeah, the rumor is that he's going to take the Maryland job. That everyone's talking about he's taking the Maryland job. I'm not convinced about that at all.
The Maryland job is not what it used to be.
It's not what it used to be because it's an also ran in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
In the ACC, when Maryland was in the ACC,
terrible conference tournament.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if we mentioned that, but
I don't know if we've talked enough about that.
Especially when it's played at the Barclays Center. But Maryland used to be a good spot in the ACC because they used to rotate the conference tournament into DC. I think they still do. But like, yeah, Maryland right there. Like, I'm still mystified by that. They're in a good enough conference. Like, I get the paycheck's bigger, but like the paycheck wasn't that much bigger that it justifies like staying there. But then again, the ACC might be in a bad place as a conference. I don't know. They're like one phone call to Clemson from the SEC away from that being a really interesting league going forward.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digressed wildly from Seton Hall, UConn. UConn had control of that game early, never relinquished control. That was never really a game. UConn, although they can't beat Creighton, they're 0-5 versus Creighton since rejoining the Big East. They can't beat Creighton. They have looked good down the stretch. They're playing their best basketball. They took care of Seton Hall without much concern. And now we have what many people are calling the Big East championship game tonight between Villanova and UConn. So,
cool.
Man, this is it. This is look. If you want to go, we can have the debate about who's a blue blood program, who's not a blue blood program, etc. But if you were to look at the Big East and say, do they have blue blood programs? The 2 that you would pick out as up for consideration are Villanova and UConn.
Absolutely.
Right now, UConn is on their, I don't want to say is on the rebuild because they've already rebuilt because they made the tournament last year. They're obviously going to be a top 5 seed at worst this year. But UConn is completed their rebuild and now is trying to get from really good to elite again. And Villanova is the elite program by which UConn is measuring themselves.
Of course.
So you have that. Plus, you have the added factor of UConn's a state school, all those alums, etc., the 4 championships that they have, the 5 Final Fours that they have, all of their pedigree, if you will, mixed with the fact that they're kind of up and coming, is like creates this interesting dynamic. Their fan base is hungry.
And they're coming in new to the conference too.
And new to the conference too. They were back last year, but since no fans in the Garden this year, this is almost like this feels to them. When you talk to UConn fans,
This is homecoming.
This is homecoming.
Yeah.
This is homecoming. We're here. We're back.
Absolutely.
And we had some UConn fans sitting around us yesterday, and they were just like, they were going nuts the whole entire game, and they were obnoxious as UConn fans are. That's all good with me. I'm okay with them being obnoxious.
I couldn't imagine if I was in their shoes. Like, literally, put yourself as a Villanova fan. Say, oh yeah, Villanova went to the AAC for 5 years. I couldn't even fathom that. And then to have the opportunity to come back and play at MSG, we'd be pumped. We'd be paying $200 just to get in the door. No
100%.
questions asked.
It'd be like having new life. It's like somebody having a near-death experience and then,
Yes.
like enjoying life that much more. That's exactly.
You're not kidding. You're not exaggerating at all, because you stay in the AAC, your program is irrelevant.
You're no longer
5
blue
more
blood.
years. In 5 more years.
If they had a blue blood in the conversation for blue blood,
Yep.
I think AAC like set them way back on that.
Absolutely.
Like not a blue blood.
They were bordering on going down the path of Georgetown, basically, and they made the right decision. It was a tough decision.
2 enormous decisions. They hired Dan Hurley,
Mhm.
and they went back to the Big East.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was a ballsy decision on their part for a lot of reasons. They had sunk a lot of money into football,
A lot.
and they took that bet.
But they
And
recognized the value of a sunk cost.
they
It
did
is a sunk cost.
that. They did.
We just keep stacking economics topics for a future economics.
That's
pod
true.
between
That's
two.
true.
We
We're
got
doing
sunk
that.
costs, we've got
bonus pod.
fluid market dynamics.
So
You
you
have pricing.
You have all of that energy combined with all of Villanova's success over the last several years, especially in the Big East. Meeting tonight at 9:30 after people have had plenty of time to get liquored up.
After 2 very close games between these teams this year.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, not the first.
The
one.
first one wasn't super close, but it was not like a blowout.
It was blown.
Was it?
We won that one handily.
Yeah, we won that one handily. They kind of came back late because
Came back late.
because
Came back late.
Gillespie got hurt.
Oh,
it
and
kind
then it
of-
took the air out, and then it yeah.
Yeah. That's what happened.
Yeah, so the score was definitely closer than that game, I think, indicated.
Yeah, correct.
But we have that loss fresh in our minds that
Oh, that was an excruciating loss.
yeah. Oh god. It's still
But
still a little bit-
MSG is going to be aflame tonight.
Yes.
First off, you got Providence fans in the house. So I think UConn fans are going to get there early to cheer against Providence. That's number one.
Yeah.
And then you have the Providence fans and Creighton fans who are going to stay by. There won't be too many Creighton fans, but they're going to stick around to watch the Nova UConn
You'd
game
think
because
so, yeah.
everybody knows. Plus, you add the ticket prices in, and people are like,
Yeah, you're getting all your money.
you're going to get your money's worth there, right? Like, so I mean, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal in the Garden tonight. And that's why I'm basically waiting. Do I pay $400 to go into the Garden? And I'm basically sitting here saying, like, at the end of the day, if I have to, I will.
I'm actually terrified that I'm here with you right now.
And
Because
I'm
if
going to talk you into it.
if there was like one scenario where I was gonna pay like $300 or $400 to get into the Garden tonight, it's probably because I let you hype me up into it, and it's like, all right, we're doing it.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it.
So seriously, let's talk about this game because the game, the teams played, to your point, won 1-1 throughout the season. I said in our pregame podcast our postgame podcast the last time that was UConn's coming of age game. In many ways, I referenced this game earlier. In the 2006 game was our coming of age game when we beat UConn, number 1 UConn, and stormed the floor at the Wells Fargo Center, well, then the Wachovia Center, when we stormed the floor then.
Yeah.
So that was their coming of age game, but it's different now on a neutral court. And yes, the crowd's going to be pro UConn tonight because A, they're louder than our fan base, and B, there's going to be more of them. But I don't think the crowd is going to actually play too much of a factor in this game.
I don't think so either.
Because the team that's going to be more impacted by the crowd is going to be UConn, not Villanova. We've played in enough of these environments throughout the course
Very
of the
true.
year. and we're led by a senior-laden team that I don't think we're going to be rattled. If we don't get rattled at the dunk, if we really didn't get rattled at the Excel Center.
It's not going to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Big East is, MSG is going to be rocking tonight. Yeah, you're right. It is not going to be that level of rocking.
No,
would be
not one directionally.
No, yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So I don't know if the crowd plays a factor in the outcome. I think it's going to be an awesome environment, but I just don't think it's going to play a factor in the outcome. I like the fact that we get the revenge game here, that we lost that last game, that we blew that lead in that last game, and we have the revenge game edge.
Yeah.
I was worried that Seton Hall could get past UConn before they had some interesting injuries with Dart Richmond's wrist, etc. I was worried that Seton Hall could get past UConn. Seton Hall have been playing really well of late, but they obviously did not play great in both games yesterday. UConn beats them, but I was worried to get them because we were 0-2. We were 2-0 against them and played them, and they played us close twice.
Yeah.
I like the edge here of having the revenge game atmosphere. Not that this team plays like, I don't know, this team always plays hard. Our team always plays hard. I don't know if there's that, but there's the edge factor there that UConn doesn't necessarily have now because they didn't go 0-2 versus us. So I like the fact that we have a little bit of a balance here.
Yeah. There's a chip.
There's a chip is exactly right. Plus, we had a poor shooting night last night. I don't think that happens. I said that about Providence earlier. I don't think that happens 2 games in a row.
Another chip.
UConn shot the ball decently as far as UConn is concerned last night versus Seton Hall. I like the way that kind of all plays out. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that I'm a regression to mean guy. So I think that we are going to shoot better tonight. I think that we have a little bit of a chip on our shoulder from the way the last game played out. I don't know about it, guys. Obviously, we'll get into the matchups here, but I like us for those feel reasons, if you will. What do you guys think?
I mean, I'm more of a feel guy anyway, as it is, and definitely more of a momentum play. I like the law of averages. We did not shoot well. And normally we had this debate at the beginning of the season. I would say, hey, look, we could shoot poorly 2 games in a row. Recently, though, probably the past 10 games or so, we have definitely been trending upwards. So given that, I would say, yeah, we're probably going to come back tonight, and I would expect bigger things. In particular, one guy who was very quiet yesterday and very quiet in the last game against UConn was Eric Dixon. However, Eric Dixon had a big game against UConn in the first game. I'm looking for Eric to rebound tonight. I'm looking for a big presence from him. Show Sonogo what's up. Take 2 of 3 and get it done. So that's my call. I think Villanova gets it done. I think Eric Dixon plays a big role. He's been a little quiet recently.
Now, do you think, because I think Sonogo versus Dixon is like one of the key storylines to the game tonight. Do you think it's a straight up gets it done, or do you think the game plan is to get Sonogo in foul trouble so he's less of a factor?
I think that's always going to be the game plan. I don't know if he'll get into the foul trouble that he got into in Philly, but he got into no foul trouble in the Excel Center. I think it'll be in between. I think he'll have a couple fouls. Hurley's going to have to think about it a little bit more, but it won't be like a pure, he's got 2 fouls early and then he has to pull him for a whole half. I don't think that's going to how it's going to play out. I think, so everyone talks Dixon versus Sonogo, and obviously that's the matchup that you focus on as a Villanova fan. Sonogo was a first team All Big East player, terrific big man down low, just an enormous presence for UConn. And obviously he's going to do work on the boards as well, including the offensive glass. I say this every time that we play UConn since Hurley's been around. This game is about the wings. It's about what happens not on the 1 line, not in the 1 position, not the 5 position. We know that the big men are going to battle. We know that Gillespie and or Moore plus RJ Cole are going to battle. UConn's guys on the wings, Tyrese Martin, Tyler Polley, Gaffney, etc. Those guys are the guys who I think it comes down to how they play. And on our end, obviously, you're talking Caleb Daniels, you're talking maybe a little bit of Langino, you're talking about Samuels, you're talking about Slater. I think the game comes down to those guys. Gillespie's going to get his, Moore's going to get his, Cole's going to get his. Sanogo and Dixon are going to battle. We'll see how that goes in terms of that. But this game is going to be won, in my opinion, based on how Villanova versus UConn's kind of guys in the middle, those wing slots, how those guys play. If Poly's hot from deep, that makes UConn so much more difficult to guard. Tyrese Martin is an enormous X factor, and calling him an X factor is not really like the right way to call him because he is their third best player on the team, but he is like, he's almost like as he goes, UConn goes in many ways.
And he's a top 3-point guy in the conference.
Right.
I think it's a fine point. I think when you look at the players, though, if all of those players you just listed and all of our wings play up to their potential, Villanova wins this game.
Yeah, I agree.
Like
Totally.
we have a better set of players on the roster. If we just get things done as we normally do, this is a Villanova win, no questions asked.
Yeah,
So I have to interject with one comment from our friend Brendan Riley, who just commented on the YouTube channel that Dixon and Samuels are still game time decisions for tonight.
Oh, whatever.
Because of the illness and the back spasms.
You have to imagine.
I don't think that's going to play a factor.
I mean,
You think that's just the procedural injury report more than anything?
Absolutely.
You're going to tell Jermaine Samuels not going to play in this game?
I mean, he grinded back in. I don't know if you, I was up on the Chase Bridge, so I had that bird's eye view, and you saw him coming in and out of the locker room after the game started, going to the bike with the heating wrap on. Like, you could tell he was like upset. Like, he grinded to get back into that game, and he contributed. He had 7 points and I think 8 boards. So
Look,
here's my question. When has there been a game time decision you can remember in Villanova history where the guy hasn't played?
even Gillespie a couple weeks ago, when we
That's
were
what
for
I mean.
sure he
We
wasn't
thought
going to
he was done for
play,
the year.
and he came out
he's
and played.
back. Like
Yeah.
unreal.
Yeah. Look,
They're both playing. It's the
Jermaine
biggest
Samuels
tournament.
playing. Jermaine Samuels in particular is playing. Dixon's got an illness. I think he'll be fine. Look, he's going to play.
Food poisoning, I think they said, right?
Are they going to play? Who poisons his food? People have,
Asking the real
you
question.
have to ask the questions, right? Like
Dave tinfoil hat.
that's right. You have the tinfoil hat out. Let's answer that question right now. Who is the most likely person to poison Eric Dixon's food?
Dan Hurley.
Is it Dan Hurley? Do you agree with that? I don't know.
Well, if it was yesterday, Mike Anderson
Joel
would seem like
Soriano?
that,
Like-
No, Mike Anderson doesn't seem like that
Mike
kind of guy.
Anderson seems like you would enjoy.
Ed Cooley, definitely not.
Definitely not.
No,
Absolutely
Ed
not.
Cooley didn't
The thought
poison
wouldn't even enter his head. I think it's you know what? It might be Kevin Willard just to spite him.
Uh,
Just out-
Parting
Spike.
gift on his way to you.
Yeah, you know
I
what?
mean,
Fuck it.
what about Nana and Joku? It's an interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
from within.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
little friendly fire. I don't know.
He's like really fed up, and he's like, I gotta get the minutes.
You got to keep your
Anywhere
voice down. We
possible.
are in the team hotel,
That's-
so we're not trying to, upset the vibes here pregame.
No, of course, obviously.
So Discord.
This
We're
is how
kidding.
rumors
But
start.
guess what? The thing with food poisoning is
RJ
that-
Cole's mom says somebody in the chat on YouTube.
Oh, that's actually the best. Who said that? Who said that?
Nitrob.
Nitrob, you're right. That's the answer. It has to be RJ Cole's mom.
I wonder if she got bad seats again.
Yeah, I hope she did.
She had good seats last night, I think.
I hope Jay Wright specifically made a call and put her in the
Yeah,
put her in
for
the
the-
400 level.
Gentlemen, real
Jail cells
question.
up there.
If you let's say you were going to tickle a little prop bet out there, does either coach get a technical foul assessed to them tonight?
No.
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
I would just love both.
Both.
Could you
is-
imagine how
both are
electric
getting
the guard-
teed. Dan
Yeah,
Hurley's
like-
not getting kicked out of this game tonight,
No.
but he's gonna get a tee.
You know, Val was like pretty stern with the officials, like no ejections.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. That's a good point.
We were not ejecting.
No
Dan
ejections for hyping up the fans tonight, please.
Hurley. Yes, for the love of God.
Please. Main stage.
But
Act like.
But Wright is going to, Hurley's going to get the first tech. Wright's going to get a later tech.
Jay looked last night at times in the first half.
Oh,
Like he was
He
trying
almost-
for it, and they just like they wouldn't give it to him.
yeah. He tried to earn a technical in that first half.
The
He
refs are
flew-
like Val called. We can't-
Rob, you were there. He
Yeah.
flew off the bench after one timeout in the first half.
The refs were literally like running away from him.
Yeah.
He was like coming after them, and they were like, "Nope,
Yeah,
nope, nope, nope.
don't say anything. Don't say
no, 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 no."
Amazing.
But yeah, no, I think the prop bet, I think there's two techs assessed tonight.
I mean, I think I would set the over under at 0.5, And I want there to be one so bad because I feel like we've talked about how electric the Garden is.
Yeah.
If you have any technical fouls assessed tonight, player or coach,
Blowing up.
the building is going to explode.
I also think that you could see a double tech on like a tie up that gets a little chippy. I think that could happen.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably as likely as a coach technical.
Slater probably the one involved in that.
No way. Slater is literally always the mediator in every. Look at all of the fights this year. In every single fight, Slater is the one. He comes in and he walks like this. He just goes really calmly, just walks in between people. It's happened on like 3 or 4 occasions.
But I can see that happening, and he doing that, trying to be like innocent and break it up, and then kind of get shoved, and then
there's no way it's Slater. I'm telling you right now.
This is going to be a chippy game tonight. This is going to be a chippy game. I think there's going to be a good amount of fouls called. The refs are going to have a hard time.
Player on Nova who's getting the tech.
Colin?
No, it's not Colin. He's too robotic at this point. He's got too much Brunson in him.
More.
It could be more. It's definitely not Samuels.
More Daniels, I would think. More. I think it's more. I think it's
going to be more.
Yeah.
He pushes the envelope a little bit more than the other guys. So I'm going with more.
All right. How do we think this game actually plays out?
Well, I think the thing about UConn's season in general is like a borderline elite defense. And Villanova's been in its best when it's been about defense and rebounding, as your friend of the program, friend of the Full 40 program, Alan Ray likes to point out. It's really about defense.
Right.
The shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets is gets the headlines always, for myself included most of the time, but it's always about defense. And so I think which defense is able to lock in is going to be an important story. And I think as much as everybody's been complaining about the ridiculous charge calls, my hope is that UConn is not going to be taking these like flop dives because they are that borderline elite defense where they're not trying to disrupt their own defensive flow by like getting crazy about drawing ridiculous phantom charges. But that said, I hope that both Colin and Justin Moore don't get suckered into the arm bars that they've been getting called for, because other teams are coaching for this now more actively to react, like a sniper hit you as soon as they extend even a little bit. And so I'm watching to see if UConn goes for that gimmick or if they lock in as a top 25 Ken Pom defense. If they lock in on that because they just want to play their game, and I'm hoping we get that clean game, but you never really know because Dan Hurley, as we know, not afraid to play the heel.
Yeah, that's right. The one thing that worries me about tonight's game is that UConn, for whatever reason, is giving me those vibes. Not like RJ Cole is going to be like Kemba or Shabazz vibes, but they're giving me those vibes of like getting really hot at the right time. Like things are coming together at the right time. And they might just run up against a juggernaut tonight in Villanova and how we play. And like last night was probably our worst effort in many, many, many games.
Yeah, it really was.
For 24 minutes at least.
Yeah, that's right. And they might run up against that and might get stonewalled there, but they look like the type of team right now that like they could run out through the Elite Eight. Like they're giving me they're giving me those vibes right now.
Interesting.
And it's just a matter of, does it start now or does it start in a week? But they seem to be firing on all the right cylinders right now. I have to admit, I really like this UConn team, and they're balanced. They have a guy who can go get a bucket. They have that big man who can pull down the big board and make some really crisp plays down low. Who, when everything's kind of going wrong, they could toss it down there. He's just bigger than everybody else. You do that. They're giving me a lot of good vibes. If I'm a fan of UConn right now, they're giving me that energy.
Nobody respects our opponents more than you.
I do.
I will give you that much.
I do. Respect your opponent. That's what it's about. It's the name of the game.
I disrespect most of our opponents.
Humble and hungry.
I think we win this game by 10 points. And if the shooting turns back on, I think Dixon is back in double digits. Caleb continues to perform. 10 points.
That's a shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets like that.
Caleb continues to perform, and this game is over with like.
Then who's your alpha dog prediction?
I think my alpha dog prediction, we're gonna go back with Colin. I think Colin contributes Colin contributes like 19 or so, and you're just like, it's gonna be, I think it's a nice even distribution though. Collins got 19, Caleb's got 13, Dixon's got 10. We look at this, say, yeah, this team is back like we were a couple.
I'm actually going to stick with that, and I'm going to go with this is the Colin. This is the Colin Gillespie makes his mark on the Big East tournament.
Ooh, Colin posted
legacy. Yes.
Yeah.
This is, I think we can see a 25 plus spot from Collins.
Because this is, as we haven't talked about this enough, is that, this is really Collins' run. This is his shot, right? Because 2020, obviously taken away. Last year, obviously taken away. This is his year with his team. And now the rubber's hitting the road.
That's right. That's right. Well, we're at the top of the hour here. So we got about 15 minutes left of recording. Chris, what do we have in the form of questions?
Oh, what do we have in form of questions? So I think one thing we did confirm that Nitrob is actually a friend of both programs, Shawnese.
Shawnese.
Legendary. Not a question, but an important clarification.
It is an important clarification.
And Shawnese also added earlier that I missed that when we were talking about Providence and who they would be rooting for, I believe that they feel that they can beat UConn more so than Nova. And that's what some Providence fans are telling her, likely out on the Twitter sphere.
Interesting.
Okay.
Very interesting. Well, Shawnese is always plugged into Villanova and all Big East Twitter. So I know that Shawnese would be nothing would make Shawnese happier than to beat, as she calls them, UClown tonight. As she calls them, UClown.
And I also miss Brendan Riley, and I assume that this was the answer to the question of who poisoned Eric Dixon. Brendan Riley, friend of both programs, contributed that it was DCR.
Wow. That would be really crazy.
Wow.
That would be wild because it's not like he's going to play.
I'm waiting for him to pull that jersey off. In a game like tonight where you've got a big man, it could happen tonight. It could happen tomorrow night with Nate Watson. If you get Dixon in foul trouble, where do you go if you need size?
You don't go to size. Jay's shown that he will just play all the guards.
He's dying with the 6-man rotation, even if that 6-man rotation goes down to 5.
Yes.
I think he would sooner play just 4 people on the court.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. He looks down his bench and Brian Antoine's there. There's literally 4 players and Brian Antoine. He goes, "We're going with 4."
Power play.
All right.
Power play.
It's all right. We feel okay.
Power play for the other team.
Chris Arch on put Chris Arch on Sonogo. See what happens.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I mean, that would totally happen.
I think we all. No disrespect to the
any other comments on the YouTube?
What do we think about ceilings for not? Well, I think we can save Villanova for towards the end of the program here. What do we think overall ceilings in the big dance? We talked about UConn just now. I think you answered that question. They look scary. You're seeing them as a second weekend team, at least performing like it right now.
Yep.
What do we think about Providence? Providence is a mystery wrapped in an enigma right now.
That's right. I love Providence's age, and every fan, a lot of people across the league are saying this has to catch up to them. This has to catch up to them. Well, in their first round game, they're going to get like a 13 seed, right? They're probably going to be a 4 seed at the end of the day. They could climb into the 3 seed territory, but they're probably going to end up on the 4 line. They're going to get a 13 seed. A 13 seed that would bother me if I was them was Iona, but Iona lost their tournament. So Iona's out. So they don't have to face like a Rick Pitino. I think they beat their 13 seed. They're too experienced.
They're going to be a hot upset pick, though.
They're going to be a hot
inevitably, they're going to be like the trendy upset pick.
Of course, they're going to be a hot upset pick because they're going to get a seed line that's way different from their Ken Pom ranking.
Right.
So people are going to look at that and say, well, by Ken Pom, this looks like they could be a pretty tight matchup. Look, even if it's tight, they are too experienced, too solid, too good. They know how to close games. They don't get rattled in close games, even versus bad competition, which is kind of a weird skill because when the building starts to turn on them, they seem to ratchet it down and get the right shots, make the right plays on the track. They're going to beat their 13 seed. The round of 32 game is going to be everything for this Providence Fire team. This team has not been to the second weekend of the tournament in 25 years.
Unreal.
That's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. This is the team to handle it. I think Providence makes a Sweet 16. At that point, I think they run out of gas because at that point they get challenged by an elite competition, probably a 1 seed. And so that obviously the bracket could open up for them, right? If the 8-9 beats the 1 and they get to face an 8-9 seed, they're going to win that game too. But Providence is going to run into a league competition in their Sweet 16 game, and I think the road ends there.
I like that. I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately for the Big East this year, it's been a fantastic, not unfortunately, but it's been a fantastic year for the Big East. Fantastically up year for Big East basketball. I don't think that the Big East has any like sure in a way you expect them to make it to New Orleans teams.
Well, that's for sure.
No, because I mean you don't have any teams in the top 5.
And really you have very few teams in college basketball this year. It feels like a very wide open field overall. I think you've got Nova, I think you've got Providence, I think you've got UConn with that second weekend talent. But then after that, it's all bets are off, just like everybody. It's all bets are off, just like everywhere else in college basketball, where, you know, even other than Gonzaga, who hasn't looked bulletproof this year, Auburn, who struggled down the stretch.
They lost today. Auburn lost today.
Auburn lost today, right? Arizona, you don't know what to make of Arizona out in the Pac-12. Like, are they that good? We don't know. Kentucky looks kind of beastly. But they've had some awkward losses too.
Yeah,
like
down the stretch, they kind of looked funky. It looked like they were playing national championship level basketball like 3 weeks ago, and all of a sudden it seemed like they're just not.
It feels like the old school like WWF like Royal Rumbles, where like it's like you just gotta just survive in advance. I mean, as cliche as it sounds, but the Big East really has, I think, those 3 teams that can get to the second weekend, at least throw their hat in the ring. And then you need a road to open up for you. And
what is success for the Big East? 2 teams in the second weekend?
So 2 teams in the second weekend is, in my opinion, the minimum. Anything less than 2 is an utter failure for the conference this year.
We would call that the Big Ten.
That's a failure. That's a Big Ten look. That's exactly correct. That would be an utter failure if this conference does not get 2 teams. Any teams, doesn't matter who, does not get 2 teams into the Sweet 16. To my over under is the 2.5. So even at 2, I'm satisfied, but a little bit disappointed. We got 2 in last year, right? 3 is where I start being happy.
For me, it's happy is 2 into the second weekend, 1 into the Elite 8.
Okay.
I don't need 3 into the second weekend. If I can get 2 in the second weekend, 1 into the Elite 8, because that means you've got more than 1 team into the second weekend, which I think is important, and then further validation of Elite 8 is like, yeah, it's a really good team. Second, if you just make the second weekend, it's like, okay, that's nice.
I think that there is a chance that the Big East gets 4 teams into the Sweet 16. And
who's your 4th?
One of the other 3. So Xavier's like,
thank you.
Is Xavier even going to get in?
I don't know.
There's no way it's Xavier. If Xavier gets in, there's
Xavier's not making
zero
the Sweet
chance.
16.
Let's be clear.
But I don't. Are
Wait.
they
How many people said there's no way UCLA even wins a game in last year's tournament? They made the Final Four.
I'm sorry. It's Xavier. We've watched this team.
I agree.
Terrible.
I agree. All I'm saying is that if they make
They're
the
terrible,
first 4,
and they don't have a coach with a good pedigree. Mick Cronin was a good coach. He's a good coach.
Fair enough. All I'm saying is that a team in the first 4 tends to win a couple games after they get out of the first 4 games. That's all my point is. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. I'm saying it's possible, plausible reality.
Yeah, sure.
But my point is that it's not going to be Xavier. My point is I don't think it's Creighton either. I think Marquette or Seton Hall could potentially do it. The problem is going to be their matchup because their seed line is probably going to be in the 8-9 territory.
Mm-hmm.
I think Seton Hall would do better if they somehow fell down like to the 10 line. Or Marquette fell down to the 10 line. I don't think that's going to happen. I think hopefully they could somehow make their way onto the 7 line.
Yeah.
Because I think the 2 seed line is where Seton Hall or Marquette can pick somebody off in their second round game.
I like that.
But I think, you know what I think happens? I think Providence, UConn, and Villanova, all 3 of them make
in the second weekend.
And I
make it to the Elite 8?
I think 2 make it to the Elite 8. Woo!
That's a hot take.
I think we and UConn make it to the Elite 8.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an exceptionally hot take. I think we're only getting one Big East team to the Elite 8, and I agree with Rob. 2 to the Sweet 16, 1 to the Elite 8 gets me content, happy. You can ward off any of the haters.
Oh yeah,
easily with that performance.
Yeah,
and
the media is just like, yeah, you're good. It's fine.
The hate from I don't know how we haven't talked about this yet. The blatant disregard for the Big East. I know you guys talked about it a little bit on the pod. I've definitely talked about it on the pregame show. Blatant disregard for the Big East from ESPN.
Oh, whatever.
The March Madness social account.
Oh, that account's run by a bad human being.
I think that account is run by like a UNC kid, like a UNC intern runs that account and has ruffled the fabric of college basketball Twitter by consciously omitting Big East games from their daily rundown of the best games today. They list every top 25 game except for Big East teams. It is 100% intentional at this point, and it's just a bitter target kid, right? Like it's a bitter intern.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Goodness.
Some kid didn't get into Georgetown and he's pissed off.
Probably lucky now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about what the ceiling is for the Big East. Are we talking about seeding for Nova? Are we doing that?
Yeah, let's do a little seeding analysis here.
Yeah.
So my source, just to give everyone like a heads up, is my source for tournament bracketology is actually a site called bracketmatrix.com.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I do that?
You had him on the pod.
So that guy is called Lucas Harkins.
Sorry, I'm confusing with Lucas Harkins.
He is he's number 2 best bracketologist per Bracket Matrix, but Bracket Matrix aggregates 300 bracketologists and basically creates a wisdom of crowds to like crowdsource who the seed lines are going to be. Basically, under the theory that the more inputs that you have, the better chance that you have of getting an accurate prediction.
And plug, you should go back and listen to the Lucas Harkins episode if you haven't already, because that was a really good bracketology episode. I digress. Continue.
Yeah. Right now, Bracket Matrix has Villanova as the final 2 seed
in the West.
Well, no, it doesn't necessarily. They don't list the region. They're not going by Bracket Matrix. Doesn't go by the region. It doesn't mean that we automatically get into the West region if that happens.
It probably would though, because Gonzaga is going to lock the 1 overall.
It could, but they don't necessarily have to, because of bracket principles. They don't necessarily have to put us with the
there might be conference issues.
Yeah,
and such. Yeah,
correct.
Regardless, I got us the last 2.
Yeah, so they have us as the last 2 seed right now. They have Providence as the 3rd 4 seed. I think tonight yesterday Providence locked themselves in as a 4. Providence can play their way by winning 2 more games. Providence can play their way into the 3 line because ahead of them is Illinois, who lost today to Indiana. So they could jump Illinois pretty comfortably. UCLA, if they underperform in the Pac-12 tournament, they could jump them. And then we'll see how Texas Tech and Wisconsin perform as their conference tournaments go. So I think Providence can find their way onto the 3 line if they win the Big East tournament. Connecticut is the top 5 seed. So Connecticut, by beating us especially, and then if they beat Providence, could definitely wind up in the 4 territory. So they're going to be right there. And behind Connecticut on the 5 line is Houston, St. Mary's, and Texas. None of those teams are jumping UConn.
No.
Houston's metrics all look good, but they just are playing a bad conference, and people don't really believe it. They a couple weeks ago on the bracket preview show, the tournament committee didn't even have them in the top 16, and their resume's only gotten worse since then.
Yeah.
So looking around the rest of the conference, Bracket Matrix has Seton Hall as the last 7 seed, so that's flimsy. And then
that seems like really strong for them, the way they've come down the stretch.
Yeah, but you know what?
I feel more like
Seton Hall has a lot of good wins on their resume.
Yeah.
They've beaten a lot of tournaments.
Yeah, technically that recency bias is not factored in.
Well, no, their recency bias has been good. They've been.
Oh, I guess they have picked. They picked back up.
They had their
January, March, not January.
That's right. Marquette is
got my months confused.
Yeah. Marquette's the second 9 seed, so Marquette's going to be in the 8-9 line, like in period. And Creighton has themselves as the top 10 seed. If I'm Creighton, I'm almost wondering, does it make more sense to lose tonight's game? That'll firm them up to not be higher than a 10 seed, so they don't get into the 8-9 line.
Yeah.
Being a 10 seed is a way better position as far as I'm
agree.
concerned.
God, I'd hate to be 8-9. It's just like you're set up to be like, oh, gotta play. We literally got the best we can do is play the 1 next game.
Yeah, right.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel nice.
Yeah, 10, you're like, all right, we got a shot. We're an underdog. Let's
right.
go. We got 2, no big deal.
Yeah,
sign me up every time.
That's exactly right. And right now, Bracket Matrix has Xavier in the tournament as not even in their last 4 in. They have them. No, they do have them as their last 4 wins. Sorry,
Yeah.
I apologize.
Has to be.
They're in their last 4 wins.
Xavier is sweating out every single conference outcome, and
Yeah,
they'll be sweating until Sunday at 5
That's
o'clock.
exactly right. So that's where I think we stand as it pertains to Big East, looking around the Big East. One more debate, I think, before we wrap this up here. This has been all over Villanova Twitter today. Do we prefer to be a 2 seed somewhere, or do we prefer to be a 3 seed in the East?
3 in the East, done.
Rob says 3 in the East, but give me a little bit of, like, I think the reason's obvious. You want to be at home.
Yeah, you obviously want to be at home, but the difference between a 2 and a 3, to me, it doesn't really matter that much. I know we've talked a little bit about who you end up playing, and I think we came to the conclusion that, yeah, like the 14s, like there might be somebody in there who's, no, it was the 13s actually that we were a little bit worried about. So it was the 3-4 discussion when we thought we were a 3 or a 4. Now we're a 2 or a 3. So given that, the caliber of opponent that we're playing there, I'm not really all that concerned about. And you're ultimately going to be playing the other side of that. So it doesn't matter. I'd rather end up, you're playing a broadly good team. I'd rather be playing them at home.
What's your take?
I just don't want to play in the West.
If you're
I
happy,
want to avoid the West.
so if you get the 2 seed and we ended up in San Antonio, which has good vibes,
Happy.
you're happy.
Happy. I think best seed available as long as it's not in the West, because I think you take any good team and you make them go to the West Coast, and I mean, I guess it doesn't matter.
No, the
because
first 2 games don't
First
matter.
2 games, you could be anywhere. You're not going to.
No, we're going to be in Pittsburgh or Buffalo, and probably Pittsburgh in our first 2 games.
But I think that the West Coast, having to go to the West Coast and play eventually, likely Gonzaga on the West Coast, is just not the matchup I want. Right? I'll take it, and I will cheer proudly, and I will probably talk myself into how Villanova can win this game if we get there. But I think if you're asking me what my preference is, it's just to avoid the West and let the chips fall where they may on 2 versus 3.
So here's what I have. I actually prefer the best possible seed available, because I think there's an assumption going on in the Villanova fan base based on what happened in the bracket preview show and some of what happened when Lucas Harkins came on and said it actually might be more advantageous to get to the Eastern Regional as the 3 line versus the 2 line, because at the 2 line, they're trying to protect the 1 seeds. At the 3 line, they're not as focused on that. But I think that there's an assumption that, if we are the 3, then we're definitely going to be in the East. And I'm not convinced that the committee goes that route at all. Like, yeah, they did it in the bracket preview show, but you know that Calipari and Self made a few phone calls after that and said, don't you dare put Villanova,
Bill Self especially,
in our region.
Don't send Daddy.
In the city of Philadelphia. Yeah.
Don't send Daddy.
Right. So there's that. I prefer the higher seed, though, because of the second round game. The 6 seeds right now are LSU, major conference, athletic SEC, team that's played pretty well overall. They've had some suspect losses, but that's a tough conference. Iowa, who has been absolutely on fire lately. Alabama, who that's just a nightmare fuel matchup for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
With Javon Quinterly on that team. And Colorado State, who is probably one of the best mid-majors in the country. Then you have, on the 7 line, though, you have USC, Pac-12 team, but they've kind of been like one of those like paper tigers all season long. Ohio State has looked kind of random of late. Seton Hall's line or 2.
Ohio State lost to Penn State yesterday, I think, right?
Did they? Yeah. And then Murray State, who is again another good mid-major, but it's not the same. The 6 line and the 7 line are fundamentally different. I prefer to get to the Sweet 16 and then let Colin Gillespie and co play their games wherever the seeds fall where they may. I'm actually going to cast my chip into the center of the table and say, I'd rather the 2 seed than a 3.
Now the question is, win or loss tonight, if a loss occurs tonight, do we have a 3 seed locked up?
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
That's locked in. Totally locked in.
I think even with the loss last night, we were locked in.
I think that we were locked in on the 3 line, even with a loss last night.
And do you think the only way we get a 2 is to win the Big East tournament? Or do you think there's a way we win tonight, don't win tomorrow, and you still get
if the opponent's Providence tomorrow, I think we could still wind up on the 2 line.
Because you already got them twice.
Because you got them twice, and it's not a bad loss, but you also in the process picked up a win over Connecticut, and the bracket has Providence and Connecticut as roughly equal weighting. So we're on the 2 line now. You're basically going 1-1 versus equally matched what the committee views as equally matched teams, I don't think you slide around all that much.
But more importantly, you think regardless of what happens tonight,
No,
we are locked at a
we are
3, no
going
worse.
to be a 3 seed at the very worst. We are
Okay.
not sliding down to the 4. Nothing happened since the bracket preview show. We were the top 3 seed in the bracket preview show, and the only loss that we took was versus UConn since then. At UConn by 2. So our metrics slipped up a little bit because of some close games, particularly against Georgetown. That doesn't really change the calculus all that much there. The committee is not moving us, whereas everyone else around us, Purdue's taken some weird losses, Duke's taken some weird losses. Tennessee not as much. Wisconsin lost to Nebraska last week. Texas Tech has had weird losses.
Wisconsin lost to Nebraska. They were already losing when Johnny Davis went down. Wisconsin is a different team with and without Johnny Davis.
Yeah.
Providence beat them when they did not have Johnny Davis.
Right.
Providence still had feather in the cap though, with that win.
Yeah.
That is not the same Wisconsin team without it.
No, absolutely not. So that's why we are absolutely safe on the 3 line. Nothing changes if we lose tonight.
So we have one last question from Shawnice. Are you going to have a post-game Spaces tonight? And I want to start before Chris answers with, I think it depends on what happens as far as game attendance tonight. But knowing Chris Bellotti, I just have to assume he's going to pop into Spaces at some point. Whether he runs one, I don't know that he can commit to, but the man's going to be on Spaces tonight.
I doubt it.
I actually don't think I will. My intent is to go to Madison Square Garden in a little bit. Hopefully the prices come down a little bit more. I'm going to keep monitoring. But I'm hoping
First tip is in 9 minutes.
it's in 9 minutes. But I don't have to be there right at first tip.
No, for sure. I'm right with you.
But my attitude is I'm going to go, and if we lose, I can see me going on a Spaces. As you can see, might be a little downtrodden, not necessarily like, all excited about it.
If you win, you're going to be in a bar.
Talk the feelings out, etc. If I win, I think a bar is coming my
You're gonna
way.
be in a bar.
Yeah.
I think a Spaces is probably more likely for either tomorrow or somewhere around the selection show.
Right. Agreed. Okay. Is there anything else out there to discuss?
I don't know. I think with a couple of minutes left to go here until tip off in the game, I think this is where we wrap it up nice tight with a bow.
That's right. Look, if you're a Villanova fan, which I assume everyone watching this podcast is, because if you're not, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But if you're a Villanova fan,
But we appreciate it.
yeah, we do appreciate it. But just evaluate your life's decisions.
Yeah.
is all I'm saying. But if you're a Villanova fan, you have to be really content with where we are relative to the beginning of the season, especially where we were 2 months into the season. 2 months into the season, we're licking our wounds, being like, man, we didn't get one of those 3 big games. Well, guess what? Tennessee ended up being a much bigger win than we originally accounted for. We got wins over UConn, who's going to be a top 4 or 5 seed line. We got 2 wins over Providence, who's going to be a top 4 or 5 seed line. So we've done a ton of good work. We've avoided, other than that Marquette game, who's a tournament team, we've avoided the bad loss. We haven't lost to anybody who's not going to make the tournament. This team has been excellent all year long. We've been basically a top 10 team for the last month. And so you have to be happy with where this goes. Win or lose tonight, you have to be happy where it's going. We're going to be a 3 seed at worst. In the history of Villanova basketball, although we've been spoiled of late, 3 seed and above is a legendary type season. For legendary might be a little bit.
I was going to say legendary is a little.
Legendary is a little robust, but
Can't complain about it.
You cannot complain about it as a Villanova fan. Yes, have we morphed into a top 7, 8, 9, 10 program of all time? Yes, but a 3 seed,
A blue blood, dare I say?
closing in. But a 3 seed is an excellent show. Should we get there, and we have a chance to get a 2 seed, and there's only been a very small handful of teams that have gotten 1 or 2 seed at Villanova in our history. So closing out on that, you have everything that you want in front of you. A matchup versus UConn, rivalry matchup tonight at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Fans are going to be back in the stands. It's going to be an electric environment, whether you are there or at home. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And as always,